I now finished Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and it really surprised me in many ways. I didn't expect the combat to have this much depth thanks to the iconic whip and many interesting weapons you can pick up and use. And dressing up and using disguises for stealth is another cool feature that's helpful to explore the more open areas the game has on offer. So here's everything you need to know. Thanks to Bethesda for sponsoring the video, and check the game out via the special link in the video description. It's of course out on Game Pass now as well. So the base premise of any good Indiana Jones story is an engaging mystery, and the Great Circle comes out swinging. After a seemingly unimportant object is stolen from his museum, Indy decides to pack his bags and follow his only clue to the Vatican. Obviously, that's only the first step, as both the story and the locations you visit expand greatly beyond your initial quest, but I don't want to spoil too much. Shortly after arriving in the Vatican, you'll also meet with Gina, your main companion for the adventure, and Emmerich Voss, the game's main villain. Both of them are great, as is Troy Baker's rendition of Indiana Jones. While the game's earlier missions are relatively light on cutscenes, the trio really gets to shine in the game's second and third act, and every scene therein is a joy to watch. It also goes without saying that all the Indy trademarks are being checked off here. You're uncovering ancient ruins, using your whip for both combat and traversal, and encounter an unfortunate amount of snakes. Even your iconic hat is included as a gameplay feature thanks to the special ability Lucky Hat. This lets you look and crawl around while downed, and if you manage to locate your hat and pick it back up, you are able to revive yourself in combat. And I'll get to how abilities work in a bit, but first I want to talk you through my favorite part of the Great Circle, the atmosphere. The different locations you visit throughout the story are absolutely beautiful, and they're all really varied too. While you'll likely spend a long time in the Vatican and Giza, the first two explorable zones in the game, even these have areas with a very different feel to them, like the Vatican catacombs. The game's second half starts introducing locations at a much quicker pace, so there's a lot more to look forward to, but again, I don't want to spoil too much. But yeah, especially exploring the larger catacombs and puzzle dungeons you'll visit as part of the main story is really fun, and it's something where the first-person perspective really shines as well. It helps you inspect these ancient crypts and long-forgotten places in great detail, and you'll need those details in some of the game's more difficult puzzles. It adds a bit of a different feeling to exploration, because where I've mostly grown accustomed to being excited for a new piece of loot around the corner, Indiana Jones made me excited just to see what I discover next. But there's a ton of content for you to explore, so let's talk about what you'll be doing, because it's actually quite varied. Indy's adventure takes him through several locations, which you can revisit at a later time to check if you missed anything from the travel section of your journal. Some of these are more linear zones, but you also have some larger hub areas like the Vatican, Giza or Sukhothai, which you'll partly explore by boat. These house a ton of mysteries for you to discover, some in the form of simple collectibles, others in the shape of more intricate puzzles where you have to decipher a code to open a safe, for example. After unlocking your camera, you'll also be taking a ton of pictures of landmarks and other archaeological finds, as these give you adventure points. You can spend these to unlock special skills from skill books like that Lucky Hat skill I mentioned earlier. Some of these books you'll have to find, but there are a variety of other activities that offer skill books as a reward. You can find medicine and give it to a special vendor to increase your stamina, or partake in an underground boxing ring to increase your healing item capacity. There are more traditional side quests in the larger zones too, like helping a local archaeologist friend recover Steely from dig sites, or tracking down a series of mysterious inscriptions and photographing them so your friend at the Vatican can investigate. Especially the extra missions with your companion Gina are great, as they feel like a natural expansion of the game's main story. A sort of director's cut, if you will. And by the way, if you enjoyed the video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to not miss the next one. Now, some of the game's missions will require you to navigate some hard to reach spaces, and that's where Indy's whip will come in handy. You can attach it to various objects to climb up walls, or swing to gain momentum and make large leaps. It also comes in handy for puzzles, as you can sometimes use it to interact with levers at a distance, but what I mainly found the whip useful for was combat. Now, Indy definitely packs a mean punch, and he also has access to a dodge and a parry to defend from incoming attacks. Even still, you usually want to avoid combat if you're heavily outnumbered, but you can use the whip to change the odds in your favor. You can use it to sweep an enemy's legs from underneath them, crack the weapon out of their hand, or draw them closer to you so you can can rough them up. If you really want to deal some damage, you want to pick up a melee weapon, and you'd actually be surprised at the amount of things the game considers a weapon. Don't get too attached to them though, as these improvised weapons break really quickly, like between 3 to 6 attacks for most of them. So that means that even mid-fight, you are constantly looking around for something you can use to whack an enemy over the head with, which honestly feels really in character. You do have firearms, you always carry a revolver with limited ammo reserves, and later enemies will start dropping things like shotguns, rifles, and SMGs. But generally speaking, shooting is a last resort, as it's so loud that it will pretty much alert every enemy in your current location, which is usually a bad idea. A neat touch though is that you can press X and swing a firearm around to use it like a club. They can still break like a melee weapon, but this gives you access to more tools if you want to stick to close quarters combat. Now the weapons and durability systems are also hugely important for stealth, as you need a weapon if you want to perform a one-hit kill stealth takedown. But doing these will take a huge chunk of durability from a weapon, often breaking it outright, meaning you have to stay on your toes to scavenge for a new tool to take out the next enemy. You do really want to rely on stealth for some parts of the game though. While it never forces you to, restricted areas marked with red on the map are heavily patrolled, and usually getting spotted there means a one-way trip to the hospital. Outside of these zones, you have disguises though that you can use to stay incognito when passing regular soldiers. This means you're mostly free to roam around, but there are special captain enemies that can see through your disguise, so you still want to keep an eye out for those and avoid them. Disguises are also useful, as most of them come with their own melee weapon, like a shovel for when you're posing as a dig site member. These can also break, but you can find repair kits throughout the world that can help you fix them back up. I found you'll find plenty of melee weapons lying around, so I didn't use this feature much, but they can definitely be very useful in a pinch. Next to traversal, combat and stealth, puzzles are also a major gameplay pillar in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I was actually surprised by how much the game uses puzzles as a core mechanic, but since they're so well done, I think it's a good thing. The thing that stands out is that they all feel like a natural part of your adventure. Solving puzzles in the Vatican has you rearranging statues to reenact Christian rituals like a baptism. Meanwhile, in a stranded German warship, you're checking crew logs and using a deciphering machine to discover the code that grants access to the captain's quarters. You'll also be utilizing your journal a lot to check for clues, which neatly gathers all relevant notes you've taken into one list. So yeah, you're constantly being challenged in different ways, but the elements of these puzzles all feel like they belong in the place you're currently exploring. Again, the first-person perspective really helps you appreciate these impressive mechanical constructions from up close, so it's a really immersive experience. And I never really got stuck either. I feel like it's very clear which elements are part of a puzzle, so with some trial and error, you'll quickly come to a solution. Your companion will also point out objects of interest, not to the point where I found it annoying, but your mileage may vary. And if you really get stuck, you can turn down puzzle difficulty from the menu, and usually you can use your camera to discover hints or sometimes just tell you the solution to a puzzle outright. And in case it wasn't clear, there is a ton of variety in this game. Next to everything I already talked about, you also have smaller world objectives. Like there'll be a nun talking about wanting a picture of a certain priest, and if you actually bring her a picture of him, she'll reward you for it. Not sure what you need that picture for, ma'am, but I won't ask any questions. But yeah, I've been really enjoying my time with the game, taking in the beautiful environments and enjoying the unique twists on combat, stealth, and of course the amazing puzzles. If you're a fan of Indiana Jones, you'll definitely want to give the Great Circle a try, but even if you're not, this game still feels like a breath of fresh air, and I definitely think it's worth checking out. Thanks again to Bethesda for sponsoring the video. You can check out Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on Xbox and PC via the special link in the video description. Subscribe so you don't miss our next video, leave a like on this one if you enjoyed it, and you can watch another video of ours by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.